Hello, Internet. Welcome to another episode of the Experimental Cataclysm. If you don't know, this is the show where we talk about updates that have come to the game for the experimental version of Cataclysm over the last couple of weeks. Honestly, there's nothing really that jumped out at me this week. There's really only one new location, and the rest of things are quite small. So there's no particular order this week. It's just sort of whatever I feel like putting up first. But we have some things to talk about. As always, the game is progressing, the game is evolving at all times, and there's always someone working on something. So, let's just dive into it. First up, we have from Korg, make Packmule and Disorganize affect move cost for grabbing items. So, if you don't know, when the container changes came, Packmule was obsoleted. Previously, Packmule, the trait that you could take at character gen, would increase your storage volume by 40%. That's something that's been removed from the game. That's something that unfortunately just doesn't work that way anymore with the new container system. So instead, they've changed the game so that Packmule now it affects the moves that it takes you in order to retrieve items from your bags. I think it's a very small amount. We looked at this recently. Yeah, it's 90%, so it's only 10% faster. And honestly, that is such an insignificant amount that I feel like Packmule has been completely removed from having any real value. I think that 10% is just like I don't know that I have a better idea for it, but taking something from a backpack in 270 moves instead of 300 moves is such an insignificant difference, especially given that most of the time you're going to be pulling things from your pack outside of combat. So I don't really see any value at all to Packmule anymore. And then subsequently, they also added a contrary trait, which was the disorganized trait. I believe this was in the game previously as well. It just made it lower. Yes, in fact, we can see that here. It previously would make it so you could carry 40 less volume, which was actually an enormous penalty. And they've changed it now to where you retrieve things 10% slower, which is, again, basically negligible. So if you're looking for a free point, this looks like a prime opportunity for that. 10% slower is just insignificant. So I don't know if it could be made better by increasing those values or not. I'm generally pretty displeased with those traits. We saw them, and I just don't see any real value to them. It's not that these traits are good or bad. It's just that they are insignificant at the moment. So I like I said, I don't know of a way to improve this in any way. I just think that Packmule was previously really valuable, and Disorganized was a significant penalty, and now they've both been moved to where it's kind of like they just exist. I don't really foresee me ever using these on any of my characters, even if I was looking for free points. Disorganized, I mean, I guess it's a free point. So, I don't know how to feel about this. It's just obviously we've lost something. It was going to be 5% initially. Well, whatever. It's pretty insignificant, and that's up to you, of course, when you make character creation stuff, how you feel about, the point values and whatnot. I don't love it because I used to take Packmule all the time, and now it's been neutered pretty significantly. So it is what it is. I mean, functionally, how do you make that work with the new pocket system? They had to transition it, so it is what it is. So I just wanted to point that out because I know Packmule was pretty meta there for a while. Let's move on. Next, from Nexus, Mr. Sepp, we have blood types. So this is just another one of those character gen changes that we've been seeing lately. Now we have ages and heights and things like that. We now have the access to blood types. This is something that will likely be expanded on in the future. Currently, I don't think there's any purpose to this whatsoever. I don't think it has any in-game impact whatsoever. But I believe that in the future, especially as they move towards expanding the wound system and possibly, having minor character surgeries in the game and things like that, seems like blood might be useful for that. So currently you can, I believe, pick this manually or it will be randomly assigned to you. So I just thought I'd shout that out. Obviously, it hints at things to come, but at the moment is not super relevant. So next, from mail clips, we have some small things. Basically, pumpkin in the game has never really had a lot of love, despite pumpkin being a pretty versatile food. We just didn't have any recipes for it outside of, I think we had mashed pumpkin, which is tasty. Oh, good, they're going to mow the lawn? Alright, I think they're done mowing. So, I don't remember what I was saying about this, but basically pumpkin is a pretty versatile food, and previously we didn't really have any recipes that reflected that. All we had was the cooked pumpkin or mashed pumpkin, something like that, which is not very impressive given how versatile pumpkin actually is. So, we now have a few more recipes that involve pumpkin. We have pumpkin muffins, which who doesn't like a muffin? Pumpkin yeast bread, muffins, yeast bread, and moonshine. Looks like they've been added to the recipe for moonshine. No, they got their entirely own recipe for moonshine made from pumpkin. So that is interesting. It's still not a lot. I actually thought this added more than that, but hey, it's something that we didn't have previously, and it gives you something to do with your pumpkin. And yes, again, muffins are the best kind of baked good, so there's that. It's always nice to see things like that come in. And hopefully more in the future. Hooray! Okay, moving on. Next from Night, we have the addition of a chemistry skill. We actually discussed this recently when we talked about lockpicking, the lockpicking skill being added to the game. It never really made sense that chemistry was kind of umbrellaed under the cooking skill. I understand where they're coming from without wanting to implement a new skill. There is some similarity between cooking and, higher end chemistry type stuff. There is, I guess, some overlap, but obviously it needed its own skill, and it looks like they finally pulled the trigger and set that up. Specifically, this has always been for crafting mutagen is really where it comes in. There aren't a lot of high-end chemistry recipes in the game at the moment, although that looks to be changing because we've been seeing those additions of different chemistry compounds and stuff being added to the game, and different raw chemical stuff being added to the game, and new tool qualities that are used for chemistry. So it makes sense that this gets done. So it's really nice that that's been added to the game. I believe they also added low-level chemistry books and things like that, so that you're not, again, if you were trying to craft mutagen, you would end up reading about lasagna and stuff to raise your skills, and that never really made sense. So super excited to see that come to the game. I don't know that I personally will use it a lot. I don't really ever get to the point where I'm crafting my own mutagen, and again, I don't know what exactly all the high-end chemistry recipes are going to be. Surely there will be significant overhaul in what is available to us, but at the moment it's not something that I feel is necessary for a character. I think that you could play your entire game without ever touching the chemistry skill and be just fine. We'll see if that changes in the future, if lower tier recipes and stuff are going to be converted to chemistry. But for now, I can't really think of anything that comes to mind. So really, for those of you who craft your own mutagen, this is going to be a major change, and it's interesting, and I think that ultimately it's a very good change, and I think that it will, it's just good. I like it a lot. So yes, you have a chemistry skill now. How about that? Moving on. Next from Ember, we had an overhaul to the look around panel. So this would be the lowercase x menu, or if you mouse over something. I think there are screenshot examples. Oh, ASCII. So I believe this is what it looked like before. It would just give you information on the terrain at the location you were targeting. I don't know ASCII. I assume he's targeting this, or they are targeting this window, because we see the library window. So that's what it looked like previously. Let's see if we can find an example. That's the same thing. So this is an expanded panel. So you'll start noticing this pretty much immediately in the game. I think that I use the X menu kind of a lot. So here it looks like they're targeting this tile. Not only does it show us the pavement, which is the terrain on this area, and gives us the information it previously gave, which was movement. Did it give movement cost previously? It definitely showed cover, and it definitely showed smashable flat and the light there, but that's interesting. I don't remember there being a move cost. But additionally, it's giving us the zombie information, the vehicle information, as well as what's on the ground. I don't believe it showed all of that previously. If we look here, similar thing. It's showing us all the items here, which I do think it used to do for NPCs and for the player character. Are these not updated? Am I just misremembering things? It's interesting. Now, it used to give it did used to give monster information. So what has been changed here? Everywhere that has a label, the value pattern. Oh, I don't understand any of that. Okay. I had trouble seeing the differences from the current version to this one. Yeah, this was also. I feel stupid because it's something you look at every day, basically, in Cataclysm, and you forget about. So this is side-by-side comparisons here. I don't see a huge. It did show movement cost. I didn't even realize that. I never pay attention. So it looks like formatting, I guess, is primarily what has changed. I like the addition of showing the enemy's HP in that menu because I don't think it did that before. It shows their disposition towards you, which is nice as well. Certainly handy. I don't. It is subtle. That is a good point. I do think it's subtle. I'm a little bit to the point where I looked at it and I couldn't even tell the difference, to be honest. And again, it's one of those things you look at every day and you just don't really think about it. So it looks like this was just some minor formatting. I do like the addition of showing the enemy HP. I think that that's something that can be really valuable to know at a glance. I think previously, yeah, it just said it is uninjured or whatever. This is a much more descriptive, and I don't even know now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I love that change because I wouldn't know the precise HP of the zombie to be able to quantify it in bars necessarily. I kind of liked the vague description, but it also adds their disposition to this for NPCs, which I think is good because I did not know. We came across some bandits recently, and we got a printout in the log that said they became hostile. But if I'd missed that message, I would not have been able to know if the NPC was hostile, I think. So that seems good. It is subtle. It is more subtle than I thought it was. But it also does appear to be an improvement. So, yeah, I just wanted to shout that out. I thought it was much more of an overhaul than it apparently was. But maybe that's something that I just won't realize until I'm playing the game and I realize how useful it is. So that has changed. I feel bad that I didn't know more about it. It's a lot of changes for... Okay. Let's just move on because I'm an idiot. Better descriptions, batch 2 from Alice W02. So they've been working to overhaul the descriptions of items, and I think that it's pretty straight. This is addressing items and furniture descriptions. I think that for the most part, it's really good changes. Like a lot of stuff. Nope, that is the wrong. A lot of things previously, it's not that anything was necessarily wrong with them. Some of them are just worded a little bit funny. Some of them are, confusing language, things like that. And this is seeking to address that. I do think that some of the changes are completely arbitrary change. Like most of them are very good, and I really like them. They're expansive. They're more descriptive. They're a little bit less jumbled and confusing. So I think that the overall quality of this upgrade is significant. I think that it's much better in a lot of cases. But this is not the first PR, and I've definitely noticed some things where you change things that there was nothing wrong with them, and it seemed like you just wanted to dress it up with prettier language. So I'm not... Those, there again, 90% of it is good, and I think that the descriptions did need a little bit of love. So most of this I support in basically as strongly as possible. They're very good. I like them. But there are a few where I'm like, why even change that? There was nothing wrong with it. There was no typo. There was no poor grammar. All you did was dress it up and make it sound more hoity-toity. Like it just, like you wanted to use more intelligent language, like more, higher level vocabulary rather than basic descriptions. And I don't really see a need for that. I don't see any reason. If something is not broken, why are you trying to reassess it and make it sound more intellectual? And I just don't like the way it comes off. I don't know how to describe what I mean. It just seems like an unnecessary change. Now, again, most of them are good, and I like this PR in general. But there are some of them where I'm like, why even do that? There was nothing wrong with it, and you're basically taking someone's work and saying like, oh well, even though there's nothing wrong with it, it sounded a little dumb, so I'm going to make it more what I want. So I don't really like that so much, but I think that the vast majority of the changes are good, and some of the furniture and terrain and stuff has descriptions that are like eight words long, and it doesn't really tell you anything about it. So I do think that things like this need to be done. I just question some of the minor choices that they've made. But overall is a good change and is expanding furniture and item descriptions. So wanted to shout that out because this is not the first PR. We've seen this. I don't think we ever discussed it, but I've seen it come up once or twice previously where they've been working on descriptions in the game. So I thought I would shout that out. Next, we have a new starting trait called Fast Reflexes. Basically, my understanding of this is that there is a mutation that is available to mutant characters that allows them to get dodge at character gen, but it was not available to regular characters. So, Code Bandit has changed it so that even vanilla non-mutated characters can get dodge traits. I don't really understand dodge in Cataclysm. It's not something that I pay a lot of attention to. Usually I focus on higher armor stuff, which tends to make dodge a little bit less relevant because the heavier armor negates your ability to dodge. I don't really understand what the traits themselves do, and I don't really understand a necessity for this because it kind of makes sense from a mutant perspective, having kind of a superhuman dodge ability. And admittedly, this one is not like superhuman, but it just strikes me as an odd trait to take. Like, your ability to dodge should be reflective of your character's stats and things. I don't think it's a trait type situation. But whatever. It's not for me, so I don't have the knowledge necessary to make it, super relevant to my characters. But dodge is something that I see come up in guides, and when people are talking to new players, they really harp that dodge is really important. So obviously, I just don't understand it fundamentally enough to really comment about this. So I guess it's fine. Let me know in the comments. How do you feel about having a trait that increases your dodge ability? I'm never going to use it, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. It doesn't mean people don't want it. So I wanted to mention it because dodge is something that comes up a lot, and I just don't know, frankly. Have a lot of that this episode where I just don't know. Also from Code Bandit, this is I have some I'm negative today. A lot of the last couple changes I've said some nasty things about. Hey, so this is me as the editor. I actually cut out a whole section here. Basically, there's a change that now when you smash things, you can potentially injure your arms unless you smash with the weapon. So if you're smashing barehanded, your character can take damage. I spent probably about 6 minutes basically griping about this and explaining why this is a terrible change. Seems unfair. I try to encourage people who have never contributed or are new contributors, and it felt really bad to crap all over something someone worked on. I disagree with this change. I think this is not a good change. In the discussion about the change, this individual who made it announced basically that yes, it's not realistic. I agree that it's not realistic, but oh well, I did it anyway. And that really, really bothers me. So I don't think this is a good change, but I at least wanted to make you aware of it. And I wanted to cut out where I basically badmouthed the change for 7 minutes. Is just not a nice thing to do. So, yeah, that has changed, and we're just going to move on to the next one. Anyway, from Mark, we got NPCs with more useful monster warnings and eating messages. So basically, if you've ever played Cataclysm with an NPC and, say, a Shocker Brute shows up around the corner, the NPC will be like, Shocker Brute incoming, or whatever. This is made to be a little bit more specific. So, for instance, instead of saying incoming Shocker Zombie, they will now say incoming Shocker Zombie to the northeast, too close for comfort, indicating their distance from the player, or incoming Shocker from the south, maybe within shooting range, that sort of thing. They also have NPCs will now comment when they eat or drink from base camps. I think this is a good expansion on NPCs. Those of you who watch my tutorial series know that I'm not super thrilled with NPCs or NPC faction camps. I think these are both little things, but they're both quality of life that add some benefit to the player. So I don't really, I think this is a good change. I think being able to tell which direction the enemy is coming from without having to look at your map or go into the X look menu, I think that's super valuable, because, if you look at your mini map, it's just red dots. You don't necessarily know which one is the shocker zombie, which is actually the threat. Maybe it's a small horde of like regular zombies, but there's a shocker brute in the middle. This quickly lets you identify which one is the shocker brute, that sort of thing. You know, just a little bit. I don't know how relevant the eat or drink from base camp food stores are, because I don't think it's just the calorie stores, right? Once they go into the base camp's food, it just becomes kind of ambiguous calories. It's not individual food items anymore. So I'm not sure what that would be useful for, but I gotta imagine it's just because I don't play with NPC faction camps, so I just don't know. I imagine it probably is pretty useful. So, this has been changed to make NPCs a little bit more verbose. So, moving on. Finally, from Curse Twist, we have the mainlining of Fuji's airport. I believe we have an airport in the game. It's like a larger regional airport. I don't remember. I believe we've talked about it on this show at some point. And this just adds what appears to be a much smaller kind of single lane airport with a small terminal and some storage and stuff, as well as a parking lot. So, pretty basic. They did add the helicopter pad. Still have not played with helicopters in the game, but from what I've been told, they have some drift. They need a lot of big open spaces. So the more places that get these helipads added, the more likely you'll be able to land, I guess. And then they expanded the runway even further because, of course, it takes a lot of pavement before the plane can take off. So, pretty not super exceptional. They have some vending machines. I don't see any monster density at all here. I'm not sure if they've added monster density and there's just no photo of it. But you at least will have access to a parking lot, some vending machines, looks like some gas pumps can be pretty valuable. I'm not sure what these standing silo-esque buildings are. Looks like some crates and things. And of course, when they do these things, when they update and when they mainline things, they add different items into the area. They buff the item, loot, things like that. So, I'm sure there's something interesting there. I don't think it's a place for like a high-level character or whatever, because I don't really foresee any real value. I think the most valuable thing I'm seeing here is probably the gas tanks, which are pretty low on the value scale. I imagine there are tools and things in the garage as well. And then, of course, if they ever expand it to where the helipad might generate a helicopter, that would be extremely valuable. So, it's been added. Wanted to mention it. Always like to mention new locations, although this one is not, doesn't really stand out to me as anything truly exceptional. So it is what it is. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Experimental Cataclysm. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Come check me out on Twitch sometime, twitch.tv/TheMurderUnicorn. I've been trying to stream more. Thursdays at like 5 p.m. EST is my current Cataclysm time, but I've been streaming throughout the week. Those of you who have been concerned that there's not enough YouTube exclusive content on the channel, that should be changing in the next couple of days. I have a few other episodes of stuff I'm going to be putting up. And for now, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. I'll be back with more in the near future, and I'll see you next time.